No, not another one right yet. That was Alice in Chains, Man in the Box. I'm sure some of you have heard that one before. Normally, I don't play like huge hits on the stream, but that one, it's still great. I honestly, I think in the '90s, it was easy to get sick of it because it was just always on the radio. But now that I don't really have radio and you have the choice to listen to whatever you want, I don't hear the song a whole lot anymore. And when I return to it, I remember kind of why it blew up so much and why it was such a good song. That just re entered the Billboard chart. I don't really know why. I just looked it up during the break. I couldn't get like a solid piece of information, but that particular song is on the Billboard charts again. And it's interesting. That is very interesting. I wanted to just for a second say that if you don't know Alice in Chains, they are one of my favorites. I think it took a little while for me to admit that they were better than Nirvana, which, those were my guys growing up, Nirvana. And I think because the melodies were so goddamn catchy, on top of the, production and everything, I still think they were great. Overrated or overplayed or not, there's a reason that band continues to find new audience all these years later. And it's the same for Alice in Chains. I just think in retrospect, yeah, they were a better band. They had fucking amazing songs. It's dark, but also maybe that's a little needed sometimes. It's pretty cathartic. Um, if you've heard some of my music, I'm very much a 90s rock fan. And I think there is something special about that era of rock. And I'm happy that people are still discovering it. I think there's maybe, I don't want to get too up my own ass about it, but I think maybe there's a reason. It's kind of like, a lot of stuff doesn't feel as real. And it's nice to hear some greasy, depressed men screaming very well about whatever it is they're screaming about. I didn't know what the fuck these songs were about when I was 10 or 12 years old, but the music really worked. It worked for me at that time, and I don't know. I think there's an appetite for rock still, and I think people are kind of looking for it, and it still exists. I mean, there's a lot of great bands still making great albums, whether they be older or newer. There's no problem there. It's just not as mainstream. So I was weirdly caught off guard when I heard that particular song hit the Billboard charts again. And I don't know. I mean, I think it's kind of cool. It would be good for me. I would be very happy if more of that kind of music came back because, if you've been to one of our shows, you kind of know what's up. But I'd be very, very happy if more bands sounded like that. Maybe it was a little passe and overdone and a little cliche and you name it in the 90s, and it kind of went beyond that. And to me, like, again, even if you don't love Alice in Chains kind of eventually morphed into Creed. Not the band, but I mean the trajectory of rock. It kind of became deep voiced man became Creed man. And it got real weird. And I think rock did a pretty good job at killing itself. I know that there's a conspiracy theory that the CIA was involved. Thanks, Billy Corgan, for that one. I don't even fucking, I know, I didn't even listen to that podcast. I can't even imagine how deep all of these rabbit holes go. There's a conspiracy theory for fucking everything. But to me, rock just became embarrassing. And the good stuff is what's remembered 30 years later, 40 years later. And that's kind of happening with the 90s at the moment, just like it happened with the 80s and the 70s and the 60s. Plenty of embarrassing, shitty, weird music from that time. I like weird, by the way. We don't remember, we don't really think about, and all the best stuff is filtered. And that's the stuff that's like, man, the 80s had such good music. Yeah, there was also a lot of crap. And same for the 90s and the grunge people and all the clones and copycats and all the record labels that just found some some addicts off the street and were like, "Hey, do you want to be in a band? The kids will love you." And then, it's just like maybe they had a half a song, but hey, it just became a profitable thing. It's weird to think that shit. This is how I will end this. I'm already talking too much. Endocopia will be in just a moment. Thank you for listening to me as I ramble. But it's so weird all these years later that when I was growing up, culture was just flannel and Nirvana and Pearl Jam and Soundgarden and like, I don't know, Pavement and weird indie rock. To me, that was just normal for like a couple years as I was hitting my teens. That was what was culture in my world, because it was everywhere. It was on the stores, it was on the radio. People were dressing that way. Have you seen the new movie that's like this? Have you heard the new album? And then it went away very, very quickly. It feels like it kind of got dragged out and mutated, but it's so strange that little Seattle thing ended up turning into such a massive phenomenon for such a short amount of time. But it did. And when you take away all the flannel and you take away all the other shit and the tragedy and the drugs, I think you're just left with good music. So welcome back, Alice in Chains. It's 2026. Close enough. Summoning new Jerry Cantrell music. It's good stuff. It is good stuff. I like his solo stuff.